Hi, and welcome to Knit All the Things. My name is Laurel. I'm also known as West Maven on Instagram, Ravelry, and here. If you're new, this is a space where I talk about all the things I'm knitting, all the things I want to knit, all things yarn, just all the things. And if you're returning, welcome back, Knitting Bestie. I can't wait to catch up with you. In this week's episode, I'm going to share with you a brand new yarn from Brooklyn Tweed. I was so lucky that my local yarn shop had a preview and I bought a few skeins, and let me tell you, the second that I got home, I wound it up and cast on. That's how good it is. So I can't wait to share that with you. I also have been working so hard on my DRK March to May knit along kind of contribution, if you will, my Feel Good Shawl. I got so close to finishing it. I'm so close. So close. It's so good, and I can't wait to share that with you. I've also been in like full-blown spring knitting mode, and I want to cast on all the things. We're gonna talk Anker summer shirt and all the spring kind of summer yarns that I'm looking forward to using and all kinds of things. So grab your knitting, get cozy, and let's go. I chose to wear this sweater today because it is weather appropriate. I would actually say it's probably on the little too cold side because of the holes. It's not too warm in Portland right now. It's a little bit gloomy, a little bit spring rainy weather. This is my Rota jumper, a pattern by Irene. Unfortunately, it isn't super size inclusive. It is very oversized, so I do think it could fit a range of sizes depending on how much ease you would like. So keep that in mind. I used Illimani Sabri 2 yarn. It is the worsted weight. They have a worsted and a fingering. I used the worsted weight for this, and I really enjoyed knitting this quite a bit. It has a nice construction. You knit the front and the back, and then you join in the round for the body, and then you knit in the round for the sleeves. I really think that it is very flattering. It obviously has a ton of positive ease. So that's what I'm saying when I think it could fit quite a few sizes. This is a size 2, and I think there's like 7 sizes, but I don't think the like range of them is too large. But again, I think a lot of people could wear this actual sweater that I'm wearing, depending on how much ease you want. So that is my Rota jumper. There is also a tank top version of this stitch pattern, and I think it's really nice. It has a couple of little like cute things, like this little like ribbed section for under the arm, which I really like. I sometimes like a little detail on the body that's a little different, and yeah, I really liked this yarn. It is, I believe, 80 or 85% cotton and then 15 or 20% alpaca. So it does have a little bit of drape, but it definitely has more of the cotton properties, I would say. So it was really a pleasure to knit. It was a fast knit because you have such a open lace pattern. It seems to go by quickly, and for the most part, you can pretty easily read your knitting. So I found it to be an easy knit. As far as how the yarn has stood up, it really is amazing. I would say there's like no pilling, which is kind of a bonus to like cotton yarns. Yeah, so this is just the black colorway. I will link it below, but I think it's a number. They just do numbers, and so it's the black. I don't know what the number is, but I'll put it below. So that is my Irene Rota jumper. It's really like, it's a nice throw-on sweater, and I feel like it definitely can look dressed up or a nice little weekend sweater, I guess, if you will. Okay, so I have been knitting a lot. Okay, I've been knitting so much. What has been having most of my attention is my Feel Good Shawl by Andrea Mowry. And as I'm picking it up, I realize I'm in the middle of a row, so let's pause. Okay, we made it. We finished the row. Okay, so this is my Feel Good Shawl. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, Renee Knits. She's currently having a knit along called the DRK March to May knit along, and it is any of her shawls or sweaters, not any of the little accessories, but any of the shawls or sweaters. And you can go on her Ravelry group or look at her Instagram for more information. But this is the Feel Good shawl. It is a brioche shawl pattern, which I really like shawls to be a little bit reversible. This is the back side. So you essentially have, you cast on, like a garter capped cast on, then you do 2 color brioche, and then you switch to 1 color brioche, and then you do a double brioche. So the bottom like stripe is 2 different colors. You can kind of see. And so let's talk about the colors in this. So this is yarn Nouveau, her merino cashmere nylon blend base in DK. And I grabbed 5 colors I liked. I thought, okay, I like these 5 colors. I'll buy them and make the shawl. I wish I would have approached it a little bit differently. So in my version, I would say my top 2 color brioche and my double brioche are not high contrast. I would say they're pretty low contrast. I think it's okay. And like when I'm wearing it, it'll be kind of like that, but it's not as exactly how it would be because it's on a needle, but imagine. And so I thought this color would look nice against my skin, and that is where I stopped at picking colors. So I really liked a dark green that she had, and I didn't get it because I didn't want the red and green to look too like Christmassy or winter holiday, if you will, because I kind of just thought I just want to pick colors that I like. But had I put a little bit more thought into it, this is maybe what I would have done differently, and maybe this will help you if you want to knit this and you're not sure how you want to do colors. So in the original pattern, Andrea has like a neon yellow and then a light blue for this 2 color brioche. And I think it looks really nice because the blue really stands out, but you can see the yellow because it is so bright coming through. Whereas mine looks from a distance just like a more muted red rather than having like really the 2 color pop like hers is. So how I would have maybe done it differently, and I considered doing this, but then I will explain why I didn't in a minute, but I thought instead of doing this kind of brownish color, I would switch it with the light color so it would pop through a little bit more. And I think that would have looked nice. I didn't really want this light color next to my face as much because it's just not the most of flattering colors for me, but I still like it. So I wanted it on the shawl. I just thought I would move it farther away from my face. So how I would have done this differently is I either would have chosen super high contrast or had done like maybe this darker color in this and then re-chosen the other colors. So because I didn't actually choose my colors with placement in mind, I think I kind of failed on that a little bit. I really do still like the shawl a lot. I just think I would have considered things a little differently. I do like having this dark stripe on both sides. I think that looks really nice. And then instead of this color, I think I would have picked the darker green. I think it would have been okay popping through this side a little bit instead of it being this sort of sagey green brown color. But again, I don't have regrets by any means. I really think it's pretty, but I think if I were to knit another one, I would approach it a little bit differently. And I also can now see like how she did approach her colors. So in this, on her shawl, it's like a lavender with like a pistachio green, and they're like the same tone, obviously different color families, but the same tone. So that is a little bit why I thought I would keep this a little bit more tonal rather than a big contrast. And I do think that probably looks really nice. I think probably the only color that I'm a little hesitant on loving would be the brown with the red. So I don't know. I think they're both really nice. I'm really looking forward to cozying up in this. It is a huge shawl. you really use most of all of the 5 skeins of DK weight yarn, so it is really big. And I do think, I don't want to rip it off the needle, I'm going to be really careful, but I think it's going to be a very large, like once it stretches out, it's going to be a huge shawl, and it's going to be really nice to like cozy up in. I don't always wear like these larger shawls as like out and about items. I use them more as like around the house cozy while I'm knitting something over my shoulders, or my kids will like to, I dropped a stitch, so we're gonna put a little stitch marker in that real quickly. So if I were to do this again, I would be more mindful of my colors, and I really do think that I would probably just consider color placement a little bit more than I did. I'm really very happy again with how it turned out, but boy, we'll have to fix this on the next pass. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, I do like it, and I'm excited to get it done. I was very close. I have, let's see, I actually have like 7 rows left and then bind off. So I'm very, 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 very close. This double brioche section is a little bit thicker than the single section if you look at the picture. So they're about the same size. It's going to be just a little bit wider. I really love the proportions of where she placed things, because I will say when I got done with the double brioche, I was really done doing it for a while. So it was nice to switch to the single color brioche, and then it was again nice to switch to something different. I have never done the double, I don't know if it's double knit brioche or double brioche. I'm not actually sure. But she has tutorials linked. I highly recommend looking at those tutorials. Even if you've done it before, it's just a nice little like aha, like reminder. For me, I learn best just having seen it. It only even has to be one time. If I've seen it before, then when I read a direction, it makes a lot more sense to me. And I can give a couple of examples. I used to be a flight attendant, and on the plane, anytime someone was knitting, I would chat them up. So I would always, you know, oh, beautiful project, what are you making? You know, all those types of things that we do, because it's like instant friend, right? So a couple of times, one time there was a woman making, I remember she was making a really beautiful cabled hat, and I had commented to her like, oh, cables, I don't know, I don't think I could ever do that. It seems so complicated. And she really kindly explained to me like, oh, like once you get what the chart says or the written instructions say, it's very simple, because all you actually have to do is slide these stitches onto a cable needle, knit the other ones, and then come back to them. It's super simple. And she like showed me really quickly. And I didn't like go home and start cable knitting right away. But when I had felt like I had that confidence and went to approach it, I just remember her kind of like quickly showing me like how easy it could be. And I feel like that is very true of many, many, many examples. Like I also remember somebody brioche knitting and thinking like, wow, that looks so intricate and so complicated. And they're like, oh no, it's like very easy, like watch me. And they were like knitting for a minute, and I thought, oh, that doesn't look hard. Like now that I've seen somebody do it. So I do encourage you, if there is like a technique that you're really wanting to learn or that you admire, like even if you're not ready for the pattern, even if you're not like ready for that next step, like peek at a tutorial, because you might be surprised how simple it actually is. So there you go. Okay, Feel Good Shawl by Andrea Mowry. You still could probably make something for her knit along, because you still have all like the rest of April and May. So that's a considerable amount. She has, which I knit last time, actually the last 2 years, I knit a Birds of a Feather, and that, while it is fingering weight, it goes very quickly, and that I think uses like 150 grams of fingering weight and a 50-gram skein of mohair, and it's very pleasurable to knit, and the shawl itself is really beautiful. So that would be something you could probably make. Or even this. This did not take that long. I think it took me 3 weeks or so to knit it. Like I'll finish it today probably. I was so close. I was so close. But I'll probably finish that today. So join in. I actually really was considering making something else, but I think one shawl or one sweater or one thing is enough. I had shown you guys this yarn before. It is from Noro and it is Uchiwa and it is the color 6. But it is a really pretty like tweedy slubby yarn, and it has kind of a color change that happens from like a very lavender to a reddish to a kind of a green. I don't know that this is necessarily my color. I don't know that it's not my color either. I think I'm just a little on the fence. I think part of it is that my lovely husband picked it out for me and gave it to me as a present. And because I didn't pick it, I didn't have like something in mind. So last week I had started or talked about starting an Eva cardigan by Petite. And why I was struggling with that pattern was you cast on the back and then you pick up stitches for the shoulders and then you start knitting flat. And I was afraid that it was gonna cause like at least one weird shoulder where maybe this one would look like it kind of matched as you picked it up, but then this one was gonna not match and then it was gonna have a weird like triangle of where you had picked up stitches before you started kind of all knitting it together. And so I was worried about that. So I started the Anker's Summer Tea by Petite also. You can kind of see the color changing right here. And I don't know, you guys. I'm not fully convinced. I'm going to keep going at least. I'll give it maybe one more stripe, maybe 2 more stripes of the like little pattern, which is very clever. When I've looked at this pattern, I couldn't quite tell what's going on. Like clearly there's increases. It's sort of a circular yoke. It's actually a similar construction to me as like a ranunculus. So it's circular yoke and then it switches to raglan increases before you split for sleeves and body. And so that to me was like, I always think that's a very flattering fit because you get the benefit of kind of both. You get the like circular yoke look, but you also have a little of the raglan fit. So it kind of, I think, is a flattering fit for a lot of bodies. But I thought maybe this would look better in a circular yoke pattern, especially with the like striping going on. And it is a summer, I would consider this like a summer yarn, or I guess if you have a wool allergy or you don't do wool, then this would be a good weight yarn for a lot of things. It's like a DK to a worsted weight. This pattern is a DK weight. I decided to knit the 2nd size. Normally in Petite knit patterns, I knit the 3rd size, but I am using a larger needle and let me think. Am I using a larger needle? I think I'm using a larger needle than the pattern. Maybe I can figure it out and leave you a note somewhere here. But I think that I'm not sure on how I'm loving this. So here's the other thing, because we all know how much I like to just frog everything that I make. Joking, sort of. Okay, so in approximately 10 days, because I'm crazy and I messaged her, she is known as Sweater Freak on Instagram, and her real name is Jenny, and I think she's Sweater Freak on Ravelry. So, Sweater Freak on Ravelry, Jenny. I messaged her because she has, I saw one of her testers knit using this yarn, a sweater that's coming out soon, and I believe from what I could gather, because this is me stalking a little, I think this sweater is going to be called a Bellini or something Bellini, something about Bellini. And the way that I can see that her testers have been making it, and maybe that she's written the pattern, is that it's some sort of gradient. And it is a drop shoulder sweater with, that you knit, I think, flat front and back, and then you join in the round, and then you knit the sleeves in the round. So I'm thinking I will have enough yarn to make that. And I think she said it would be out around the middle of the month, middle of April. So if I'm not loving this, then that's plan C, because this is already plan B. I hopefully can post some picture of something here of that sweater, but I do think it could look nice that way. I think part of my issue with this yarn is that it is a heavier weight. Most of the summer garments that I've made are like at the most a sport weight. And so it being heavier weight is kind of messing with my mind on how I'm going to wear it. Because it is like in the spring 60s, like this would be like a perfect summer sweater, summer shirt, I think, weight-wise. But I definitely don't think it would be a great summer thing. So in my mind, I should make it have sleeves so that it like is more wearable, because I'm not so sure the weight would be a good weight for a summer shirt being short sleeves. Like it just might be a little too warm for summer and a little too cold for, like the short sleeves might be too cold for spring. Does that make sense? So I don't know. I think it's looking nice. I think the color changing is looking how I guess I thought it would look in this Anker's summer shirt, but we'll see. It being a little slubby, I don't want it to look too messy or too like homemade. I think there's a difference between something being like homemade looking and handmade looking. I think sometimes you can have a very elevated handmade item, but I don't want it to look like too homemade. So I'm hoping, like I'm gonna go a little further and see how we're starting to like look from the pattern, because really all I've done is the cast on and one pattern, and then I didn't increase. So I'm about to start the next like ribbing section of the pattern. But what I was gonna say is it's very clever how it's done. Being a circular yoke, in between these like sections is where you increase. So it gives it that like line that you're seeing, because in my head I was like, oh, it just kind of looks like all ribbing, and that's obviously not what's happening because there are increases, but I wasn't realizing from visually that that line in between them is actually increases, which is very clever, and I think it looks really nice. And the way she does the increases is very clever, the way that she has you just add them. I think it's really smart. I think the way that she has you add them actually would be very genius for a new knitter, because you're not having to like necessarily figure out a way of increasing. It's very, very intuitive and very genius the way she has you increase. So I do think it's a cool pattern. I do think I would enjoy knitting it. Part of me almost would want to knit it in this yarn, the Illimani Sabri, a black one, because we all know. But I do think this could be pretty. I just don't know, again, I just don't know if it's the right yarn. This yarn, I like nouveau. I really do. Like I wear my cardigan all the time. I love it so much. This just throws me a little bit, and we'll find it. We'll find the thing that it's perfect for. But for now, I also had to like rewind, which was a little bit of a struggle. I had to rewind this yarn. It's very like a sticky cotton, so it doesn't like, it kind of gets hunked together. And I had been, I think, knitting it from the center, which I wouldn't recommend for this necessarily. So when I unwound my other thing, I thought, oh, I'll just easily rewind it. And it really wasn't that easy. It took a couple of goes and it's kind of messy, but I do like this yarn. I do want to see, like, as I was winding, I was like, gosh, it's so pretty. It has like sections where it's like very purple. It has some that are like really a red, some that are like almost a cotton candy pink sections. So I think knit up is just going to be stunning, but I think I just need to like knit it. I think that's really like, I just need to keep going and like, don't worry about what's happening right now. So that's what I've been working on also. And I've been happily working on it, but I should have finished my shawl and figured that out later. But anyway, so the one thing that I really, really am so ecstatic to share with you is this new yarn. So I was very lucky, and I am very lucky, that I live near so many awesome yarn shops. And one of the awesome yarn shops that I live near is Starlight Knitting Society. And last weekend at Starlight, Brooklyn Tweed had a preview, I guess, trunk show at Starlight for their new yarn. It is coming out April 10th. So just in a couple of days. I would recommend signing up for their newsletter for for Brooklyn Tweed's newsletter. And if you have a store near you that carries Brooklyn Tweed, look out because I'm sure they'll be getting it. So this is the Imbue Sport. And this is the charcoal color, or I'm sorry, the carbon color, which is like a charcoal gray. And they have already Imbue worsted weight. But here's the thing, and this is what makes this really special, because it is obviously similar. I think it's similar that it's American merino wool and it's non-superwash, but this is like squishy. It is super squish. So the worsted, it is a worsted spun yarn. However, this almost feels and knits up a little bit woolly. And I was talking to Jared Flood, the owner, and he had mentioned that I think the worsted weight, and I'm so sorry if I'm getting the plies wrong, is a lot higher ply. It's 6 or 8 plies. It's a lot higher ply for the worsted weight Imbue yarn, which gives it a lot more strength. The more plies you have, the more strength this yarn has. This is a 3 ply, and so it has strength, but it also has a lot of squish. There's a lot of give in this yarn, and it really is quite magical. I would say the feel is extremely soft. It's a 20.5 micron fine merino. So it's a very, very soft yarn, but I feel like with it being non-superwash, it definitely has a little bit of sticky and a dry quality. So I think sometimes it's not at all rough, it's zero roughness. But I think if you were to pick it up, sometimes I think non-superwash yarns have a dryness to them. It's not that they don't have that slipperiness of a superwash, but it's definitely a little bit of a dry feel, but very, very soft and very squishy. So I had gone to the store literally thinking, oh, I'll go check it out and then we can talk about it on the podcast and whatever. I don't know that I'll get any. And I could not leave without this yarn. I couldn't do it. I instantly was like, what can I make? I need to make something today. I need to make something right now. It is so good. So I picked up, I think, 4 of these, 4 skeins of this, because I felt like I could make a tee or a vest with it. So I bought 4 of the carbon. And then I decided to do something else. I wanted to use this Spincycle. It's a dyed in the wool, but the color is I think it's Mizu. I don't actually have, I lost the tag somewhere. I'll put it on the screen. I'll look it up and put it on the screen. But it's their tonal Spincycle. So a lot of Spincycles go through lots of colors, but this particular line of the dyed in the wool is more of a tonal rather than it having a lot of colors. It's one color, dark to light. So I thought these would look really nice together. They're obviously clearly a palette that I'm enjoying right now because obviously it's me right now. So I thought these would look really nice. And then I was on the hunt for the perfect pattern. So I looked all over Ravelry. I looked in patterns that I already had, because I think oftentimes I'm looking for the next best thing without actually looking in the library, because I am the type of person that if I like a pattern, I buy it. Whether or not I'm going to cast it on right away or at all. Because one, I think it's important to support knitwear designers. This is an easy way you can do it if you can afford to. And, it's nice to have that pattern library. I also think pandemic, I'm well, I'll at least have this pattern. I don't know. I don't know. It's a kind of a weird thing. And this particular one I did print out because it has a chart. So I decided to go with the Kevät by Caitlin Hunter. And this pattern is very cool. I do think it's hard to see in her photos of the pattern because she did use a semi-variegated yarn or a lightly speckled yarn. And I do think it's hard to see all the detail as well. So in this, it has color work and then it has a ton of bobbles, which I'm not a fan of bobbles. So originally I had really liked this pattern, but I did not think I would knit the bobbles because I don't know, there's something about them. They're just not my favorite thing. I know this is very like controversial. I think you're either a bobble person or you're not, and I don't think I'm a bobble person. But anyway, so instead of bobbles, I did beads, and I think it turned out gorgeous. So I found these beads at a local shop, and they are Toho beads, and they're like a gray with a gold inside, and I think it turned out super, super beautiful. And I don't think like it's as obvious to see the Mizu like color change. Mizu, I don't know the name of the color, but the Spincycle, if you can see, like this part is darker and this is definitely lighter, but it's not really like hugely color changing in the way that you're used to most Spincycle yarns. So rather than bobbles, the thing that I've really only changed is doing beads instead of a bobble. So any place that was supposed to be a bobble placement, I just did a bead instead. And how I did that was I knit the stitch, and then I took a crochet hook and pulled a bead onto that stitch, and then on the following row, I knit through the back loop on the stitch with the bead. So it was very simple, easy to do. I busted out this yoke so quickly, mostly because like this yarn is amazing. I really think that it could be like a desert island yarn. It's such a nice weight. Because it is sport weight, it has a lot of squish. And I did go up a needle size for sure on this pattern. I did, I think, a 4mm or size 6. And it normally calls for a size 4. However, I do know that Caitlin Hunter's patterns, the needle sizes range quite a bit. And I just thought the size 6 would be a nice needle for the yarn, and I chose a smaller size of the pattern to hopefully end up with about a size 3. So I did a size 2 with the larger needle, and I do not mind if it's going to be a little bit snugger fit on this one. So I'm really excited for this. The next thing I have to do, I just split for the body and sleeves. The next thing I have to decide is whether or not I'm going to do the lace pattern on the body. I'm certainly not going to do any bobbles, and I won't do beads on the body at all. I will only be doing lace or plain. So I have to figure that out. Right now I'm leaning towards the lace just because I think it will be fun to knit, but again, I'm not so sure. Let me know in the comments if you've knit this or you have an opinion. So that is my Kevät by Caitlin Hunter. And yeah, I really love it. It has such pretty little like what should I call it? Like 1x1 cables. You have collar work, bobbles if you want them, lace. It's a really fun, easy pattern. I really, really, really have enjoyed it so far, and I think it's going to be really pretty on. So I highly recommend, again, signing up for Brooklyn Tweed's newsletter and keeping an eye out at your local yarn shop for the Imbue Sport because it's fantastic. The color range they have was great. I really had a hard time choosing. They have a really beautiful red color that I loved, and also a like navy color that's much like the charcoal. It was definitely blue, but it was a very dark blue, which I thought was so pretty. So I thought real quickly I would share some of my summer yarn stash to kind of maybe jumpstart some ideas for you if you do want to knit with some cotton yarns or summer fibers. So the first one I showed this last time is a fingering weight yarn. It is 60% organic cotton, 40% linen. It's a 4-ply, and it's from House of Mode. It's her vintage flora, and it really is a really super special yarn. We're not wanting to focus. Okay, there we go. So this is the colorway Misty Vineyard. Then I have a sweater's quantity of this. It's the Isager Her Organic, which is a linen. 100% organic linen yarn, and this is the colorway Indigo. And I used this for a sweater last year for my Alpine Bloom sweater, and I really, really loved it. It really, I thought, was a very nice use for this yarn. I will say you should use, if you use this for color work, I would do ladderback jacquard just to ensure that your garment lays the way that you want it to, because linen has no give. So if you're using it for color work, you really have to like manage it very carefully. The other yarn that I have and really like for summer fibers is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. I got this because I really wanted to use this for a Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit. I just need to like cast it on. And part of the reason I have hesitated was because it's teeny tiny needles, and I know that I will love the finished garment, but the teeny tiny needle knitting, I'm afraid it's gonna take forever. I should just cast it on. Next, I don't have the ball band, but this is, again, a Knitting for Olive. This is their cotton merino. It is a nice weight yarn. It's a fingering weight yarn, and I believe it's 60% wool, 40% cotton. So it's really soft and nice. It's not as cool as some of the other yarns that I have knit with, but I do like it a lot. And I do think it is a good option if you are looking for a wool blend yarn. The next one I have, I've used a ton. I mostly use this for baby garments, but I was thinking about it, and you definitely could use this for a garment for yourself. This is Concept by Katya, and it is a 90% cotton, 10% cashmere, and it is a sport weight yarn, and I haven't found it as much in local yarn stores as of recently, but you can purchase it online from them, and it comes in about 23 colors. This is the stone gray, I believe. It might be the medium gray. I have done both. I think it's a really nice gray, and I typically use this actually for the little sister romper from Petite Knit for baby gifts. So I always try to have a few of these on hand. The next yarn is from Illimani. This is their Illimani Sabri 1, which is the fingering weight of the yarn that I'm wearing on the sweater today. And this is just their black. It's a really nice true black for a cotton yarn, and it's really soft because it has 15% alpaca. And then the last but not least is the Antigone by Durirum Natura. This is the colorway Marsala. And I really, really love this yarn. I've just been looking for like the perfect pattern because I do think it's a stunning color. And I just need to like find that perfect pattern for it. But this is 100% linen, and it is also a sport weight. I would say a lot of the linen ones could be sport or fingering weight. So you could really use them for either or in a pattern, I think. So yeah. Those are the like summer yarns that I recommend. And what else? I think that is as far as yarns for summer projects or spring and summer projects, ones that I recommend. And again, I'll link everything below and links where I have purchased them. But again, search or your local yarn store or find them elsewhere, maybe closer to you, would be good. Okay, so I wanted to tell you guys, thank you so much for all of the kind words from our last podcast. I so appreciate it. And other than knitting on the Good Shawl, which did make me feel better, and your guys' kind words, which also made me feel better, I've been listening to a lot of things. So I find that if I'm really wanting to get in the zone of knitting, that listening to something rather than like watching a show is much better for me. So currently I have been listening to the Giggly Squad, which is two girls who kind of just talk about all kinds of things and definitely giggle throughout the whole thing. And I find it just nice, a nice like light thing to listen to. I also have almost done with Jedidiah Jenkins' latest book, which is called Mother Nature. And he has written I think this is his 3rd or 4th book. And this book is about his relationship with his mother. His mother, Barbara Jenkins, was her and her husband at the time walked across the United States, and it took them 3 years. And so this book takes place along that journey, but her and her son are taking a road trip across it. And it's about their relationship, her remembering like things from the past and how they're trying to like work out some of their issues. I really think it's beautifully written. He has a very compassionate approach to a lot of things. His mother is a very religious woman and doesn't quite understand her son. And so it's them working through kind of their feelings and their thoughts and their beliefs. It's a beautiful way of like communication. Beautifully communicating to like people we love who maybe do have different thoughts and feelings than us and beliefs. And I really thought it was like well done. And I do really admire their relationship because they have a very close relationship, even though there's a big thing between them on like a core belief. So I do think it's like an amazing book. And I've been listening to it because I do actually like to buy his books, but I love listening to them because he is from Nashville. He's from Nashville. And so he has a nice accent to listen to. And so I always enjoy that. But, and the books are read by him. So I think that's a really great one. And then the other thing I've been listening to a lot are, if you type in like QCODE, like the letter Q and then the word code, CODE, into like your where you listen to podcasts, they have a lot of great shows that are like audio immersive. So I often will actually forget that I'm listening to something and not having it play in the background and not having it be like a show because of the like rich sound environment that you're in. And so those have been really fun to listen to lately, but I've been just like listening to things and like letting my hands knit. So that has been like very, very comforting things. As far as spinning goes, I have been taking a pause on spinning for my traveler only because I was trying to do this other stuff and it wasn't the right thing for me at the time. But I'm hoping this week that I can get back into the groove. And Andrea Mowry also has a new challenge for long draw spinning. I do have some fiber I can use for it, but most of my fiber is comb top braids. And I know you can prepare them a little bit differently, but I know that they're also not the like perfect thing for learning long draw. So I do have some bats and I do have a couple of things of roving. So I plan on like exploring that a little bit further. And yeah, so until 2 weeks from now, if we're not yet knitting besties, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like this video, it tells YouTube that other fiber enthusiasts like yourself enjoy this type of content. Till 2 weeks from now, make some yarn magic. Bye!